The information contained on the Crypto Sports Collector website and social media is for general information and educational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for legal, commercial, and/or financial advice from a licensed professional. The business of online investing is a complicated matter that requires serious financial due diligence for each investment to be successful. You are strongly advised to seek the services of qualified, competent professionals prior to engaging in any investment that may impact your finances.
One topic I've been getting a lot of questions on in the past few months is regarding the Nike NFTs, and specifically an organization called Artifact, spelled RTFKT, which is a company that Nike bought in late 2021, early 2022. And just let me give the basics real quick before I get into the questions I've been asked and just how to think about the NFTs that Artifact is creating. So Artifact is a creator-led organization. They use technology to create unique sneakers and digital artifacts. In short, think clothing and other items for your avatar, especially for use in the metaverse. But what makes this organization really intriguing is that they create and sell these NFTs, which is just like many other Web3 projects, but they're very intentful on how they do so because they put a huge emphasis on merging the physical and digital worlds. I even saw a term in my research being thrown around, which was phygital, which is the smash up of the world physical and digital. And this is a perfect way to describe this organization. They even have events called forging that allows owners of their NFTs to redeem digital and physical goods during the forging event. So think about buying one of their NFTs during this forging event. You've already purchased an NFT, but it allows you the ability to then go purchase, a t-shirt or shoes or some other physical good that's connected to that NFT. And there have been a lot of headlines going around regarding the digital artifacts, and in a lot of cases, what I've seen is their sneakers that are being sold on the secondary market like OpenSea. Now that we have the basics about Nike NFTs and Artifact, I want to go back to the question that I've been getting a lot of in the past few months, and that is, are Nike NFTs a good investment? Is this something that we want to be in? And really, this goes back to kind of more fundamental principles I have about just any NFT project, whether it's NBA Top Shot, NFLALLDAY, Bored Ape Yacht Club. Nike NFTs are no different. So there I'm going to kind of emphasize 2 or 3 kind of main points, and these are the similar points that I tend to look at on any NFT project because there's so many of them out there. The first one is long-term viability. Does this platform or this product have long-term viability? At the end of the day, blockchain technology underpins cryptocurrency and these NFT projects. That I believe in will be here for a very long time. I think that is such a huge technological advancement that I think will be around and be part of a society for a long time to come. But in this context, digital goods with respect to the metaverse, time will tell if this will be something that will be adopted by the masses rather than just kind of a subset or smaller community. I tend to remind people too, it's important to remember this, is that the concept of the metaverse is not a new one. It has been around for 20, 30-ish years. I think it came around in the late 80s, or I think it's maybe early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, somewhere in that range. But even the idea of a metaverse where you've got a visual, you've got a virtual avatar of yourself is not new. And if you've got time, you should Google something called Second Life, which is kind of an early version of the metaverse. And that has at some point had a very strong community. I think it's whittled down a lot, but I think it's still around. But my main point in saying this is we have to let things unfold and only time will tell if digital goods and the metaverse is something that will go beyond kind of just a small-ish community. Because if you got a small community, obviously that might not be the best place to be investing. You want something that's got a big market, obviously. So, and the other piece to consider is we're in a very shaky environment right now, right? That's not a surprise to anyone. Traditional markets are down. The economy is in a recession, and the crypto and NFT markets have significantly cooled. So again, time will tell if these alternative markets will be able to ride this out. I'm a believer that the traditional markets and the economy, we're just in a cycle right now. Those will come back. Crypto and NFT markets are a bit in a unique situation because I think they are being dragged down by the economy and the traditional markets, but it'll be interesting to see how and if they're able to ride this out. So this all goes back to whether or not there's long-term viability here. Also, I think the other piece to remember here is I think these Nike NFTs and what RTFKT is creating are still kind of in that early adopter phase. I think, and again, going back to, because of that, the community of people is much smaller than what it could potentially be if this all kind of plays through in the next few months or years, right? And because of that, your market is just much smaller, and it's just harder to get a return that is predictable and consistent because the market is much smaller. I need to dig further myself to see if people are getting value out of the secondary market. I know I've seen a couple headlines about people, flipping this for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6x, in some cases 10x what their original investment was. But again, when you're reading these headlines and some of these stories, remember that you're reading the outliers. So you've got to do your own research and make sure, is this something that you can do with some sort of consistency, and is it predictable, right? That's what we want to look for in our investments. So again, to kind of wrap that first part up, long-term viability is very important when considering any NFT project. The second piece I consider in any NFT project is something I call the value add of the NFT. And I think this is actually something RTFKT does really well because they emphasize the merging of the digital and physical world by connecting the two with their forges. And I've said this many times before in my previous videos. Forging is an example of adding value beyond the digital collectible itself. Is there something else that I am getting as an investor or a collector on top of just the digital asset that I've purchased and can be authenticated on the blockchain? That's all great, but is there something else I'm getting on top of that, right? Let me give an example of NBA Top Shot. NBA Top Shot has started to do this much more in the past 8, 10, 12 months by gathering top shotters at NBA games. This has to be the natural evolution of NFTs and product innovation in the space. Give me something beyond that digital authenticity of the product. It's also not lost on me that this is a marketing tool. NFTs are being used as a marketing tools for these brands, and it's a different way for these brands, and a lot of them big ones. I mean, Nike is a huge one. There's a lot of luxury brands out there that are using this as a marketing tool and just a different way to engage with their consumer. But I truly do believe more can be done here, and it'll be interesting to see what comes to fruition and how these companies push that engagement with their end consumer. But at the end of the day, if I'm going to consider this an investment vehicle, or even if I'm a collector, you want kind of something more beyond just the digital collectible itself. Does it give me access to a community? A lot of these NFT projects claim to do so, right? Does this get me into events? That's a lot of this art NFTs are starting to do that much more. Does this get me into exclusive clothing drops, shoe drops, whatever it may be? Is there something beyond just the NFT itself that allows me to benefit, right? The last point I want to make is around whether or not at the end of the day this is going to be a good investment vehicles, or Nike NFT is something I want to put a portion of my portfolio in. Before I answer that directly, I want to compare and contrast this with NBA Top Shot. With NBA Top Shot, when it first came out, and I argue that this was one of the first projects that really hit mainstream, kind of mainstream media, mainstream culture, and people started digesting this idea of what an NFT is. I think a lot of the society still doesn't fully get it, but I think this was one of their first exposures and experiences with it, is hearing about NBA Top Shot. And specifically with NBA Top Shot, the association with traditional physical trading cards made it easier to see value for something like an NFT. Whether or not you believed it or not, you could see why people would attribute value to even a digital version of a trading card, or, you know, a highlight video, because it was like a physical trading card. It was your favorite player in their favorite moment, you know, with one of your favorite moments, or a very memorable moment. But you could see that by association with traditional trading cards, there could be value to an NBA Top Shot moment. Again, whether or not you believe the NFT space, or you were a fan or not fan of it, you could at least see kind of the connection there. Compare and contrast this to digital sneaker or digital clothing. For digital goods, these are being created, and the value that is derived from them is from scarcity. That should be no surprise to me. All of these NFTs, the value derives from scarcity. But specifically with digital goods, the values derive from scarcity, and that's dependent on how much, you know, the company is willing to make of that specific digital good. And that's something that's much more subjective. A digital shoe and the number of them that you make is very, very subjective. And my main point in saying this, it's very hard to place value on these things beyond just observing data on what someone else is willing to pay you for it. Again, you're going to say this is, you know, some people are going to say this is painfully obvious, right? But at least with an NBA Top Shot moment, if I've got a LeBron James versus bench player X, I know naturally that the LeBron James probably should be valued higher than some random other bench player. There's almost an intuitive bit of value you can derive just from kind of comparing and contrasting just even the name of the player, LeBron James, right? Whereas with digital goods, much more harder to do that beyond just how many of sneaker X versus sneaker Y are there in circulation. And even the design of it is subjective. Some people are going to like the design of the rare one, some people are not. And so again, my main point here is it's just harder to place value on digital goods. And this actually gets into a concept that I've found very interesting to describe NFT and crypto markets. This actually gets into a concept called the greater fool theory that I've seen used to describe the NFT and crypto markets. And just to define the greater fool theory, it's this idea that during the market bubble, one can make money by buying overvalued assets and selling them for a profit later, because it will always be possible to find somebody who is willing to pay a higher price, aka the greater fool. There's a whole debate and discussion I'd like to have around this theory and its relevance to the NFT and crypto markets, but that's for another time. But going back to Artifact and Nike NFTs, in my mind, at the end of the day, it's just harder to assess value with respect to digital clothing and goods versus, say, moments in NBA Top Shot, where things like players, serials, the moment itself can give you a better association of value. And believe me, I was a big sneakerhead back in the day, not so much now, but I would be willing to throw down, hundreds of dollars on sneakers. So I can't even say it's because I don't get the idea of sneaker culture. I definitely get it because I was a part of it. But for me, I'm still out on Nike NFTs as purely an investment vehicle. If you're in it for the community aspect, the vibe, the collector status of it all, being able to flex, in the metaverse, all the things that make the community sneaker hum, that's much more tangible. But as a strict investment vehicle, because it's hard to place value on these things, unless you land something super rare and can flip it for a profit, I don't believe it's a sustainable it's a sustainable investment vehicle. Yes, of course you can make money, flipping, unopened boxes, for example. But I think that's being more lucky than good, and it's hard to do so in a predictable and consistent manner. And here at CSC, we're all about adding discipline to investing, and because these are harder to predict, it's hard for me to put my weight behind it at this point in time.